Hello, Instagram over here. My amazing Zoom room of challenge participants over here. You're going to see me moving back and forth from each one. I want to make this challenge accessible. I do invite you, though, if you have the capability to join this challenge, get in on this. The link is in the bio to be able to join the challenge so that you can get yourself in the room, ask questions, and participate with the other participants who are incredible people. Just saying. So today is day 2. So quick recap, yesterday was day 1, and we went into an introduction of what is Cunty, why is it important, and no, it's not just about me swearing on the internet. Well, that's fun, but it's actually a movement and it's an empowerment tool that I created and I use in my coaching, in my world, and in my brand to help other feminist entrepreneurs, people who are not from the privileged status quo group of, historically privileged entrepreneurs. We're out here trying to make our mark, and this Cunty tool helps us do that. So, whoops. Tell me I hit my limit already. How rude. Bear with me. Is it going to reconnect? Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, so that was what we talked about yesterday. So if you missed that, the replay will be sent if you're on the challenge participant list. If not, then, that's why it's called a challenge. You gotta show up and do your best, right? That's what we're here to do, is just do our best. So today is day 2, and today is the first day of the first phase, which is the 3 C's. And today I want to talk about courage, or being courageous. And yesterday I left off with the hint that there's a very, very intentional reason why courageous is the first pillar of the Cunty framework. It's the C. It's the very first and honestly the most salient one for me. When I think of Cunty energy, I think of courage first, because I know in my own life, whenever I want to do something that feels big, or that feels scary, or that feels like, oh, who am I to do this? Or all of those self-limiting beliefs, or, things that we have that are working against us, systemic oppression, different isms that are working against us, biases, all of these things can really get on top of us. And it takes first immense courage to be able to put ourselves in the arena despite and in spite of all of those things and factors that are working against us all the time. It takes an immense amount of courage, and that's what makes this model so powerful, is that it starts with courage. And there's a common misconception that first comes the confidence. So you feign confidence first, and then you can become courageous to do the thing. Okay. And I am going to flip and reverse that narrative, that actually courage comes first and foremost. It's that just willingness to fall flat on your face, or rub someone the wrong way, or put yourself out there and there might be crickets. Not everyone's going to get it at first, potentially, right? These are all potential situations, but they're situations that a lot of us have fear about, because we're not in the dominant privileged group. We are often up against immense forces, and we have a lot of legit fear about those. So confidence actually shouldn't come first, because confidence is something you build. Confidence is a trait that, by practicing courage first and practicing the art of literally just step by step, putting yourself out there, doing the thing, showing up, having the courage to do it, even if no one shows up, or people tell you you're doing it wrong, or people don't get what you're doing. It's literally just believing in yourself and having that courage to say, no, I know that I am doing what needs to be done. I know that I have a purpose. I believe in my mission, and I'm just going to be courageous as I can to just show up in any way that I can. So when we think of courage, we often think of, like climbing a mountain or, these big, audacious, bold moves, these like the lion is the symbol of courage. And I want to argue that there are so many beautiful forms of courage. And by thinking that they always have to be these big, audacious, feats of courage, that can really hinder us from doing courageous things, because it might make us feel like we're not doing enough. We're not courageous enough. We're not putting ourselves out there enough, so, oh, it's not a big deal. We underplay ourselves, we under celebrate ourselves, and this is not acceptable. Okay, this is not cunty. We are here to take every single act of courage, no matter how big or how small, and we are celebrating the fuck out of all of these acts of courage, no matter what, because I know in my like deep soul how much something that to me seems huge to someone else might seem small, or vice versa. To someone else it might seem huge and to me it seems small. But we're here to celebrate every single act of courage, because each person is walking their own path, especially in entrepreneurship, with all of the ways that it has been done, or like the old white boys club, or just the rules that are set out, or there's so many things, so many systems that make us feel afraid or scared that the way we want to do it isn't right, or isn't going to be successful or make money, can really get in the way of us doing these things that the world really needs. Our people are waiting for someone, a champion, to just take the steps, no matter how big or how small. We're all looking for champions who are going to take these steps to move us all forward, who are on a mission. We're all on this mission to raise the vibration, like redistribute wealth and power. We're here to see each other rise up, and that's going to take some courage. And it doesn't have to come at, like, you don't have to put confidence first. Even if you're not feeling like completely confident, you just keep showing up courageously and the confidence will come. Because as you're doing this and as you're showing up and putting your energy and your best self out there courageously, people will start to resonate and they will start to respond, and they will be so inspired by you, simply for you doing these acts of courage. So that is like the reason why it is absolutely number one, and it is the main C in Cunty. Okay, it's not confidence. It's not, tomorrow we're going to be talking about curiosity, but courage is really the main C in the model, because I just think that has to come first before everything else. In order to be unapologetic, you have to be courageous first, like, because the exact, being unapologetic is literally flying in the face of all of those rules and expectations and things that have been set to keep us playing small. And it's deciding that you're not going to follow those, but instead be courageous to show up unapologetically. That takes courage in itself. And to do notable things, guess what? Takes courage first. like we said, you build up, right? Like, to do big things, big, incredible, notable things in your life, you have to exercise that courage muscle. It's literally a muscle. As you do it more, you will start to surprise yourself at your ability to be courageous and show up courageously at things that maybe a year ago you would like faint if you were, put up with that situation that you're put up against now. But because you've been being cunty and being courageous along the way, you have built a resilience and a courage that allows you to navigate things today that you might not have been able to before. And that is like, really should show you that you are on this incredible growth journey that is entrepreneurship. And even if you're not an entrepreneur, building that courage muscle will help you in all ways in being cunty and living a cunty life, okay? Achieve like massive success and impact for yourself, for your communities, this is important. In order to be transcendent, like to exceed limitations, guess what? You gotta be courageous to do that. It's not like an easy thing to just show up and throw all limitations out the door. And it's similar to unapologetic in the way that that literally takes courage to say, I see the limitations set out before me. I see the limitations of my own mind trying to make me stay in this stuck small place. But I'm going to take that courageous first step, no matter how big or small, to do the thing and exceed those limitations. Super courageous. And then lastly, the Cunty model, to be yourself authentically in a world that doesn't readily celebrate ourselves for these diverse, beautiful, spectrumed individuals that are beautiful in all of our ways. Our world isn't set up for that. So in order to show up as that, as our full authentic self, it does take courage, because there are systems set in place to try and keep us in boxes. And I don't have to tell you that. Like you're here, right? The system is not set up. But you're here because you're committed to living your authentic truth, because you see that that's when you feel most lit up, most happy, most alive, most in your purpose, most in your truth. And other people in your surroundings and people that you're going to serve as clients, they need that as well, and they want permission to be courageous themselves. So by you doing it, it's giving incredible permission to everyone else to be that. And guess what? That takes hella courage to do that, to be that trailblazer and to be that leader, despite what other people are going to say, the haters, the things that are going to come. These are all very real. And it's okay if you're not ready to be fully out in your full authentic truth. It's a journey. B, like I said, courage comes in different sizes and shapes. So even if you can just express your authenticity in some way, that is incredibly cunty. And I'm so here for that and so proud of you and so like cheering you on every step of the way of this journey. So that is the most important thing that I wanted to talk about today in terms of being courageous. Sunny's here. Do you have any questions for me, Sunny, about how to tap into courage for yourself? Or do you have some comments about when you've done that in the past that has been really a transformative experience for you that you wouldn't mind sharing? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but if that's something you'd be okay with, feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat if you want to share. He said, all of my confidence has come from doing scary ass shit. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, like thank you so much for naming that part, right? I think often people think like, "Oh, once I gain confidence, then I can do that like scary thing." And it's a big ass lie, right? Like for me, my confidence has all come from being like, "Well, you did that. That shit was like scary."
Uh,
Right? And so I guess like, and I'm someone who does scary shit all the time and yet doesn't make it any less scary, right? And so I guess I'm wondering for you, and as like people explore what does it mean, what does courage mean for them, right? Like I think sometimes when we say do scary things, people imagine things that are so massive that then they like psych themselves out. And so I'm wondering like if you have any recommendations on like what are small scale ways that feel still courageous, right? That are like that's still courage, that still very much counts.
Yes. Oh, that's such a great question. And I appreciate that question so much. One way that I think is incredibly powerful is building your squad. And I know that you'll agree with this. Building your squad and testing out the waters with people that love you and that like support you. And sometimes it might not pan out the way you wanted it to, but that's data for you to keep honing in who your squad is. And you know, what it felt like and how you'd like it to feel instead, right? And then keep pursuing the people that are going to help you and like give you that feeling of, oh my god, that panned out so well, and that really paid off for me, to be that courageous self. A lot of times this takes an amount of vulnerability that it's really good to be in a space and in a community that you feel will hold space for your vulnerability, and that will honor you and first see you and be like, I see how important this was for you and how vulnerable this was for you, and I'm fucking celebrating the shit out of you that you did this, and I want to see more, right? And is constantly wanting us to be more courageous and more ourselves. And people that see visions for us that maybe we can't even see yet, but they'll hold space for us to get there, and they'll be there for us as we build that path and that trajectory, and they keep cheering us on as we grow. I think that's so incredibly powerful. That's one way that like social media can be helpful, is to gather people that are like liking your stuff, sending you loving DMs, sharing your content, right? And so sometimes it might require you to like make some asks, but for the most part, there are people out there that just will love and support you no matter what, right? You don't always have to ask. You can also just show up as yourself, and they'll be like ready to support you. Um, does that answer your question?
I love that so much. I don't even think that that would have occurred to me as like a yes, but that makes so much sense, right? Because I think building your squad is scary, right? It is like even if you're friendly, even if you're super outgoing, like especially for entrepreneurs, um this is our baby, right? Like these, like what we do in our businesses, it's our art, it's everything. And so when you don't have a squad, it is kind of scary to like approach people and be like, hey, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're like, you want to be my friend? Like, like that shit is scary because it's like, what if they don't? Or like, what if they don't feel, good about your mission? And so that is a really like, and you're no stranger to, like making friends, right? You're super personable and all of that. And I think and similar, right? I think that it can be really easy to overlook the courage that it does take to say like, hey, I think you're really cool and I think like this could feel good, and like help me, like let's be part of each other's squad, right? Like that is a smaller scale thing that even isn't small scale because when you build that squad, that is how you like grow. So yes.
Yes. I also want to highlight the courage, because you're right, it does take incredible courage to reach out and try and create that squad, and a certain amount of vulnerability where you feel like there's that vulnerability. I also want to highlight the incredible courage it takes when your squad isn't quite right, or there's not a good fit there, or there's something or someone that doesn't resonate with you, or maybe you got it wrong. Like maybe you thought this person was going to be like really supportive of you and you were going to like be really driving, and maybe it doesn't work out. It's incredibly courageous to acknowledge that and to make adjustments and keep going on the pursuit of your true squad, who is like through thick and thin and is celebrating, hey, and is celebrating you for you. And we're going to talk about this art of nurturing and creating your squad throughout this challenge, because it comes up in every single trait. There is a trait that has to do with the people that surround you and the people that you engage with on a regular basis. So I love that you asked that question, Sunny. That was such a powerful question. We have a couple people here on Instagram, so I'm just gonna pose the question on Instagram too. Mary Angelica, if you're out there to like share a way that you've been able to be courageous in your business or in your life, even if it was a really small way. Like, what was a way that you could be courageous, even if it's small? Because, like I said, oftentimes we think it has to be this enormous feat, and it doesn't always, right? It can just be something small. I think we nailed it with the squad, and I'll definitely give a think, and I'll open it up to like the questions and the email list after for who didn't attend today, and see if anyone else has some awesome um inspo for this question. But I think that's where it starts, is the people we surround ourselves with, and the acknowledgement of what is keeping us small, and then the courage to just do something differently, and just say, I don't want that to be my limitation anymore. I don't want that to be my story, and just taking one step to make it a different reality. I remember too, like, when it came to my own like personal body hair journey, I was in therapy, and the therapist said, well, one thing you could do is start off by creating like an anonymous account, which is really specific advice, but I took it, and it started the ball rolling. And then it got to a point where I didn't need it to be an anonymous account anymore, because I was like, well, fuck it. Just like, I gotta just, it has to be me eventually. And I worked up to that point where I could own it, right? But if it's something that you're not quite ready to own, then there's that too, right? There's that ability to, like, again, test the waters, do something anonymously. Like, let's say if you're an entrepreneur or you want to test out a new idea, can you like submit a blog or a Substack or something where you can put out your ideas that is very like low, it's more low stakes, and you don't feel like your whole business and life hinges on it. Because that's another thing I wanted to say, and then I'm going to wrap this up, is the whole fake it till you make it phenomenon it's harmful. I think I'm going to make this stance, because what we're doing with that is we are putting our nervous system in a state of like panic. Literally, we're like, okay, I'm really terrified of this thing, but I have to just fake it and pretend. And what we're doing is we're telling our nervous systems that, as we are is not enough, that we have to pretend to be something different, which that's not a very pleasant feeling. And then another thing we're doing is, once we get there, we haven't even like gotten there in a natural, a more natural way to like get our whole systems on board with that. So even if we get the thing or do the thing, we still might feel really dysregulated or all over the place, or we might sabotage and come back down. So that's where the fake it till you make it approach, I don't think that it is nearly as powerful as building that courage muscle, as if you're just on a wellness journey, right? We just, it's a gradual thing that we can work up to, and we can do the work to keep our nervous systems more or less like keeping up with us, right? There's always mindset work to be done to like make sure we're on that level with our courage. But that's a really important distinction to be made when it comes to like the confidence and the fake it till you make it paradigm that I don't appreciate. Mary Angelica said, I removed a page for an offer on my website. It can be scary to let go of an offer, but just the simple task of removing the page was a brave start for me before the huge brave action. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's such a beautiful example of just taking one step, because that, I'm sure that felt courageous. It sounds like it was scared, but you were scared, but you did that took courage. But also, it doesn't feel like you're burning your entire business to the ground. So again, it's keeping your nervous system more or less in line with yourself, right? You're not telling yourself that you're going from like 0 to 100, and then your nervous system is just like out of whack and needing to catch up. So thank you so much for sharing that example. That is a beautiful example of a little way that you can build that courage muscle. And then, I'm excited to see like what the next step is, and the next step. And that's the journey, right? So I love that the journey and this cunty energy, it all starts with the act of being courageous, and not just once, not just twice, but it's a practice. You know how we talk about mindfulness as a practice? I really believe that courage and building this courageous muscle is literally a practice that we have to keep on going if we want to grow and if we want to exceed limitations and live a cunty life. Courage is a crucial, crucial component. So that's what I have for today. That's a wrap on day 2, courage. If anyone has any other questions coming up about surrounding courage, please drop them. I will stay for another minute just to give time for any questions to come in, any comments, any like big aha moments, drop them.
Okay, I totally just had an aha moment of
Okay,
like,
lovely.
even when we view courage as like an external thing, I'm like, oh shit, sometimes it's just courageous to something that doesn't even have to leave your brain, but like, oh shit, it's courageous to like even reframe your thoughts,
Mhm.
right? Like, I think you had said something earlier of like when you stop playing small, and I'm like, oh, that requires a mental process where you go, oh, I don't want that anymore, right? Or I deserve better, and that all like starts in the brain, right? And so I was like, "Oh, it's even courageous to just go like, oh, I don't want that anymore. Or, oh, I think it's time for X, Y, and Z before it ever even leaves your mouth or like your body or even before you even take an action." Um,
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
I love that so much. Oh, yes. So, I have to say that my framework, the first pillar is acknowledge. And that's exactly it. It's like there is so much that we need to even be aware of. And that does take courage because you know the adage of like ignorance is bliss. It takes incredible courage to even be aware of what's going on, to offer some reframes to yourself, to be open minded to new perspectives and new ideas, to decide what you want if it's something different, like massively, massively courageous. So, thank you so much for highlighting that. That's so important. And that's why my first pillar of my framework, because like the CUNTY model and the acronym is one thing, but then it's embedded and rooted in this like bigger framework which I talked about yesterday on day 1. So that is available. But absolutely, acknowledgement is first, and then activation comes next. And that's where a lot of like the actionable, like courageous actions take place. And then the third pillar is getting accountable. And there's a lot of courage in that too, right? Like just to keep yourself accountable, keep showing up, even when it's hard, even when people and blockades and things that try to get in your way come, or limiting beliefs or other things that try to get in your way of doing the thing and being your best self and living this cunty life. To keep that accountability going also takes immense, immense courage as well. Yay! So if that is all, then that is going to be a wrap for day 2. Thank you so, so much for attending and showing up and participating in this beautiful, beautiful challenge. I'm so excited to have you here. So it's a 10-day challenge. Today's day 2. It's Monday to Friday for 2 weeks. So no weekend. You're welcome. That was very important for me to make that clear. Hey, Erin. We're just wrapping up, but you make sure to catch the replay. I want to also let you know that I have a podcast called the Cunty Realness Podcast. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of the topics that we talk about, a lot of I highlight the 3 pillars of my framework. I'm doing a series right now in my podcast about using this framework to not give up and to keep believing in yourself. And I think that's so incredibly important for us. So if you want to hear more about this, check out the podcast. And then lastly, if you sign up for the challenge, there's also a workbook, which it's not really a workbook. It's more like a journal where I encourage you to take the concepts of each day. I've created pages for you to be able to do this and jot down some of the aha moments, like Sunny, like you had today. Jot down some of these aha moments for you to come back to and refer to later. And it'll help with integrating this as you integrate and keep on living your cunty life, these kinds of reminders and these notes will help you to remember what that means, especially in the harder moments, the moments where maybe we don't feel courageous. We can look back and be like, oh, yeah, it doesn't have to be like I'm climbing Mount Everest. It can just be acknowledging a limiting belief that's in my way, you know? So there's space to write that. There's also space to reflect on some wins, maybe some wins that relate to courage. Or tomorrow we'll talk about curiosity. What are some wins, right? Jot those down, and then maybe some challenges as well. And then you can always bring that tomorrow and we can talk about that if you'd like. And then last but not least, there is a VIP upgrade for the challenge. If you would be down for some coaching, I've opened up an extra 30 minutes post call each day to be able to offer some hot seat coaching in regards to living a cunty life, having a cunty business, just integrating these concepts and going over some of the challenges that you go through, that we all go through in this attempt to lead these incredible lives, build these incredible businesses with incredible missions. You know, it does take a village and it takes a cunty coach. So that option is definitely available for you there as well. When you sign up for the challenge, you'll be given that option as well to upgrade to the VIP. So I'm going to sign off of the Instagram. See you later. And yeah, thank you so much, Sunny, for participating today and for engaging. I really, really appreciated it so much. Yay! And I hope to see you tomorrow for day 3, which is curious.
Amazing. Thank you for being you, boo. And I will
Thank you
see you soon.
so much. Yay! Have an excellent evening. I'm going to stop the recording 1 second. Okay.